You get up because you need something: your phone charger, a glass of water, the scissors from the kitchen drawer. You know exactly why you are moving. You can feel the intention, clear and specific, pushing you up out of the chair and toward the door. Then you walk through that doorway, arrive in the next room, and it is gone. Not buried, not fuzzy, gone. You stand there, looking around, completely certain that 10 seconds ago you had a reason to be here, and completely unable to say what it was. You still know your name. You still know what year it is, where you live, and how to walk back to the room you just left. The entire architecture of your memory is intact. The only thing that vanished is the single small sentence that started the trip, and it happened in the time it took to cross one doorway. This is not a sign that something is breaking in you. It is so common that cognitive psychologists gave it a name and then spent 20 years running experiments on it. They call it the doorway effect. And what they found is stranger than ordinary forgetting, because the door did not erase the thought. Your brain did, on purpose. And it is doing the same thing to you many times a day, in rooms and far beyond them. So the real question is not whether doors have some special power. They do not. The question is why a change of place can make a thought that was active 1 second ago suddenly hard to reach. To answer that, you have to look at what your brain is actually doing while you walk. The first careful experiment on this came from Gabriel Radvansky and David Copeland at the University of Notre Dame, published in 2006 in the journal Memory and Cognition. The setup was deliberately boring. Participants moved through a virtual environment on a screen, picking up objects from tables, carrying them from one place to another, and setting them down again. Every so often, the task stopped and asked one simple thing: what object are you carrying right now? Or what did you just put down? Sometimes the person had just walked a certain distance across one large room. Sometimes they had walked that same distance, but through a doorway into a new room. That was the only difference that mattered. And after a doorway, people were measurably worse. More errors, slower answers. Same object, same distance, the same few seconds of walking, but crossing a threshold made the memory harder to reach. The delay could not explain it, because moving within the room took just as long and did not hurt. The thing that damaged the memory was not time passing, it was the change of place. The researchers were careful to rule out the easy answers. The objects were carried out of view once picked up, so people could not simply glance down and check what they were holding. The only thing on trial was the memory itself. The timing was matched, the distances were matched, and across version after version of the study, the same pattern kept appearing. Walk the same distance inside one room, and your memory stayed steady. Add a doorway in the middle, and it dropped. Radvansky described what was happening in a precise way. At every moment, your brain is holding a kind of working summary of your current situation: where you are, the objects around you, what your body is doing, and what you are about to do next. Psychologists call this a situation model. It is not a vague mood or a feeling. It is an active, constantly updating package of information that keeps your behavior matched to your surroundings. The goal that sent you walking, get the charger, lives inside that package. And the moment you step into a new room, the package gets rebuilt for the new place. New walls, new objects, new things you could do here. The old goal is still somewhere in memory, but it is no longer sitting at the top of the live model, ready to grab. Now you have to dig for it. And sometimes the digging just fails. There was an obvious objection to all of this. Maybe it was only the screen. Maybe people were distracted by the controls or by the clumsiness of moving through a virtual world, and a real doorway would do nothing. So in 2011, Radvansky, working with Sabine Krawietz and Andrea Tamplin, published a follow-up in the Quarterly Journal of Experimental Psychology that ran the effect in the actual physical world. People walked through real rooms, carrying real objects, tested the same way. The effect held. Walking through a real doorway hurt memory more than walking the same distance inside a single room. It was not bad graphics. It was the boundary itself. The research also varied how much crossing people did, and passing through more doorways produced more forgetting, while covering more ground inside one room did not. The number of boundaries you crossed was what predicted the forgetting, not the distance you walked. The same line of research tested something most people are sure they already know. If a doorway makes you forget, then walking back into the original room should bring the memory back. You have almost certainly tried it, retracing your steps, standing in the spot where you started, waiting for the thought to reappear. In the experiments, returning to the original room did not reliably fix the problem. That detail is important because it kills the simplest explanation. This is not just about losing the right environmental cue. If it were only that, walking back would hand it to you again. The deeper issue is interference between events. Once your mind has closed one event and opened a new one, the old event becomes harder to use, even when you return to the exact place where it began. And this points to something far bigger than doors. Your brain does not experience your life as one smooth, continuous stream. It is constantly cutting ongoing experience into separate events. Jeffrey Sachs and Keina Swallow, who studied this directly, described the process in 2007 in Current Directions in Psychological Science. The mind is always drawing boundaries. A person sits down, a conversation changes topic, someone walks into the room, one task finishes and another starts. Each of those is a small boundary that closes one event and begins the next. Your brain does this because prediction depends on it. What is about to happen at a kitchen counter is different from what is about to happen at your desk, which is different again from what matters in the middle of a shower. Slicing life into events lets your brain load the right expectations for right now and let go of the ones that no longer apply. In 2009, Swallow, Sachs, and Richard Abrams showed how fast this happens. People watched short clips of everyday actions while objects came and went, and their memory for those objects was tested a moment later. Memory depended on whether an event boundary had just occurred. Crossing a boundary changed what the mind held on to, and it did so within about 5 seconds. That is roughly the same handful of seconds it takes you to walk from the living room to the kitchen. A doorway is simply one of the strongest event boundaries there is because it changes almost everything at once. Your whole visual field changes, the layout changes, the objects change. The actions available to you change. Faced with that much new information, your brain treats it as the end of one event and immediately starts building the next one. The goal you carried in belongs to the event that just closed. Notice what does not trigger this. Turning around in the same room, glancing at a different wall, even closing your eyes for a moment, none of these reliably wipe the goal, because none of them tell your brain that the event has ended. The situation is still the same situation. It takes a genuine shift to convince your brain that one event has closed and another has begun. A new room, a new screen, a new scene. That is why the doorway is such a clean trigger. It delivers all of those changes in a single step. Now, you might expect this to be a young versus old story. That careful people are immune, that younger brains hold the thought just fine, and that this is really the first quiet sign of an aging or tired mind. In 2015, Radvansky tested exactly that with Kyle Pettyjohn and Jun-Sung Kim in the journal Psychology and Aging. They ran younger and older adults through the same doorway task. Both groups showed the disruption, and the size of the effect was similar across the ages. This is not the leading edge of decline. It is a basic feature of how a healthy brain organizes experience, and it runs the same way at 20 and at 70. But here is the part that finally makes the effect useful instead of just annoying. Doorways do not always make you forget. In 2021, a team publishing in BMC Psychology ran a careful multimodal investigation and found that the effect depends on conditions. It shows up when the transition is noticeable, when your attention is already loaded with other things, and when the new room offers strong, competing things to think about. And it quietly vanishes when the goal is strong enough to hold its own. You do not forget why you walked into the kitchen if a pan is smoking on the stove. You do not lose the thought if you are already carrying an empty glass in your hand, because the object in your grip keeps the goal alive. The doorway effect only wins when the intention is light, silent, and easy to outcompete. A quiet note to yourself with nothing tying it to the new place. This connects to something psychologists call prospective memory, remembering to do a thing later. In 2000, Mark McDaniel and Jill Einstein laid out a framework for how it actually works. Some intentions you hold by actively monitoring them, keeping the goal warm in the background while you do other things. Others you simply trust the world to trigger for you when the right cue appears at the right moment. When you tell yourself, when I get to the bedroom, I will grab the charger, you are quietly handing the job to the bedroom. You are betting that the room itself will remind you. But if you walk in and the bedroom instead hands you a pile of laundry, a notification lighting up your phone, and a drawer someone left open, those cues reach your attention first. The charger never had a chance because you never gave it anything to hold on to on the other side of the door. And you cannot fix this by simply deciding to hold everything in mind at once. Active monitoring costs attention, and attention is limited. Keep 10 intentions warm in the background, and each one gets weaker and more likely to lose to whatever the next room throws at it. So your brain does the reasonable thing. It lets most light intentions go quiet and leans on the world to remind you when the moment comes. That strategy works beautifully right up until the world changes the instant you step through a door. So the practical lesson is not that you have a bad memory. The lesson is that a light intention needs support to survive a boundary. If the goal actually matters, carry a cue across with you. Keep the object in your hand. Say the goal out loud once before you move. Leave a reminder in the exact spot where the action has to happen, so the place does the remembering for you. Lower the competing noise at the moment you walk in. None of these are tricks against a faulty brain. They work because they keep the intention attached to the new situation instead of leaving it tied only to the room you just left. And this is where it stops being about doors at all. The modern version of this happens to you constantly without you walking anywhere. You open your phone with a clear purpose and lose it before the screen finishes loading, because opening the phone is itself a change of context. Switching apps is another. A notification arriving in the middle of a task rewrites your situation before you have finished the previous one. Opening a fresh browser tab can wipe out the search you actually meant to run. None of these are doorways in any physical sense, but to your brain they are the same kind of event boundary, demanding the same update. That is why I opened my phone and forgot why feels almost identical to I walked into a room and forgot why. They are the same mechanism. In both cases, a light intention has to survive a change of context, and in both cases, the new context is louder than the quiet goal you were carrying. And the boundaries come faster now than they ever did. A century ago, your context mostly changed when your body moved from the field to the house, from one room into the next. Today, it can change a dozen times a minute while you sit perfectly still. Every new tab and every notification a fresh event your brain dutifully updates into. The machinery is exactly the same machinery your ancestors walked around with. The only thing that changed is how many boundaries it now has to cross in a single day, and the count has quietly exploded. It would be easy to file all of this under things that are wrong with your brain. It is closer to the opposite. The updating is the entire point. New rooms can hold new dangers, new tools, new people, and new tasks. And a brain that ignored all of that just to protect one small reminder would be a worse brain, not a better one. Forgetting a weak intention is the price your mind pays to stay ready for wherever you actually are. The system is built to keep your behavior relevant to the present, and it will drop the reason you started moving in order to do exactly that. The blank moment in the kitchen is not a malfunction. It is the machinery working as designed, deciding that the room you are standing in right now matters more than the thought you walked in carrying. So the next time you stand in a doorway with no idea why you came, you are not watching your memory fail. You are watching it draw a line between two events, closing the one that sent you walking, opening the one you are standing in now. The fix is not to strain harder for the thought. It is to rebuild the thread the boundary cut. Look down at your hands. Look back at the room you came from. Say out loud the last thing you remember doing. Those are cues, and the cue is exactly what your brain was waiting for. You did not lose your mind for a second. You crossed a line your brain takes very seriously, and for that 1 second, the new room mattered to it more than you did.